Good morning, ladies. It is me, your girl Rachel L. Proctor, your mentor for the Finish Strong Mentorship and Accountability Group. And it is time for another Mentor Motivation Monday video, bringing Mondays back to life. And so, as you guys know, if you're part of the mentorship group, of course, we've opened up the opportunity for you guys to submit questions to me to be answered in the form of the video, which is what you're looking at now, to be answered around questions that you might have and wanting to know about different topics. And so one of the topics, well, the topic I guess that I'm going to address today is the topic of forgiveness. It was one of those topics like when we talked about purpose or discovering your purpose. It was one of the ones that many of you had questions about, and so I want to talk about that today. I really prayed about what would benefit the group, or what God would have me to talk about that could benefit the group greatly this week. And so the topic of forgiveness came up. And so I want to talk about that a little bit today. And so if you see me kind of again veer over, my notes are actually on my other computer over here. So yeah, I'm not doing other stuff. I'm actually just looking at my notes. But again, when we talk about forgiveness, I think one of the main things to remember, and it might sound very, very cliche-ish, or the typical thing or the obvious thing about forgiveness, is that we have to remember that we've all fallen short, that we've all made mistakes. And I think if everybody wore a t-shirt with all of the mistakes they've made, all of the things that they've done wrong, whether that be towards themselves or towards other people or towards God or whoever, some of the people that we look at that have these perfect lives, so to speak, as we look at them on social media and in the news or wherever, wouldn't look so perfect if we really wore those things and we really could see what has happened on the inside, or things that may not have made it to the public. They wouldn't look so great. And so we have to remember that we have to look at people through the eyes of compassion, because even though you may not have done what someone else has done, there are things that you have done, even things to other people. And so we've always got to look at people through the eyes of compassion, and we've got to look at ourselves through the eyes of compassion, because one thing that I've noticed is that forgiveness is not always just a struggle for you to forgive someone else, but there are times when people struggle to forgive themselves for mistakes. And so we've got to even look at ourselves through the eyes of compassion. And this is critical for our emotional health and for what we need to do for ourselves. And so some things I want to kind of jump right into what the essence of forgiveness is. Because I think a lot of times when we go through things, and if we don't really deal with those things properly, or if we don't really address them in that moment or within a certain amount of time, we start carrying around a lot of things. And those things that we begin to carry around become like weights. And if my arms, even from a natural sense, if my arms are full, I don't have room in my arms to carry anything else. And so the same thing goes with us. If our hearts and our minds are full of resentment, if they're full of unforgiveness, if they're full of bitterness, if they're full of anger or rage or whatever that emotion or emotions are that you have been carrying around, you cannot receive. You don't even have the capacity or the room to receive the good things, the positive things, the blessings that God has for you. So that's why it's so important that you learn to forgive. And I want to talk, and I won't get ahead of myself, but forgiveness is definitely an ongoing process. It's not a one-time thing where you say, oh, I forgive Johnny for what he did to me, and do it one time and then that's it and you're over and, everything's back to normal. No, forgiveness is definitely an ongoing process. It is something that you have to be intentional about. It is something that you have to train your thoughts to work out over time. It's kind of like when I think about training your thoughts, I think about a puppy. Think about when you've had a puppy. If you've ever gotten a brand new dog or a brand new puppy, there takes unless you got it trained already, but generally when we get a puppy, we have to house break that puppy. And if it's going to stay in the house, we have to show it that the place to go is outside, not inside the house. And so whenever we see that puppy getting ready to lift its leg on the couch or on the kitchen table, the leg of the table, we've got to redirect that puppy to know that yeah, it's a normal thing for it that it wants to go, but it has to go to the right place. And that's the same thing that we have to do with our thoughts. When we see our thoughts veering into the negative, or veering into bitterness, or veering into anger, we've got to correct and redirect our thoughts to the place that they should be going. And so that's what forgiveness is. That's the essence of forgiveness. And so I want to kind of talk about unforgiveness and how it stands between us and God. A lot of times we look at success and many people don't really look at forgiveness as being something that could affect your business or affect your job or your career, but it most certainly can. I think when we are not healthy emotionally first, it will and can block your success in life in many other places. Because if you have these things that you're harboring around, again, that unforgiveness is an energy zapper. It sucks the energy out of you. It sucks the life out of you. It sucks the creativity out of you. And if you're holding on to things, and if you're repeating incidents, and if you're playing the victim, and if you're always having a pity party, you won't have the energy or the creativity or the stamina or even just the unction to walk in your purpose when you're not emotionally healthy. So that's why it's so important, if you're going to be successful in business, if you're going to be successful in your career, if you're going to be successful spiritually or mentally, you've got to deal with the root of those things first. You can't build on top of sand. You've got to build on solid rock. And the only way we can get down to that solid rock is to deal with all those layers of things, emotions, memories, bitterness, unforgiveness, whatever that thing is that's covering that solid area up. We've got to peel that stuff back and really deal with it and see what's going on there. And so again, we've got to remember that we are all sinners. And it's only by the grace of God that any of us are here and saved. I don't care what people make you feel. We all have made mistakes. We have to, and the Bible even assures us that every day we've got to pick up our cross. Every day we've got to have a repentant heart, even if it's something that you did unknowingly. You've got to make sure that you get those things right on a daily basis. So don't let self-righteous people make you feel like, oh, they just go through their day and they don't have any problems and no evil have they done. I've heard that song, and it's an old 100, and nothing's wrong with that if that's your thing. But, I don't know. It's not my song. I know every day I don't feel innocent. I don't feel, at the top of my game for whatever reason. And so you have to make sure that you're starting your morning off. And I have the video here on my YouTube channel as well as on my website about how to start your day, how to plan the perfect day. And it starts with your mindset. It starts with your thoughts. It starts with prayer. It starts with emptying out anything that is a hindrance to you. Because if you're trying to work around that, it's going to hinder you all throughout the day. So you've got to know that. And again, we've all been saved by grace. And so if you think about the things that you've done, and think about the things that you've thought, even if it's just a thought towards someone or whatever, if you think about all of that, and that if God could forgive you of that, surely we can forgive someone else. Now, this is the caveat to that. When I say we can forgive someone else, because like I said, I don't want anything blocking my blessings. I don't want anything blocking my success, not things that I can control. I have the ability to choose. That's one thing that God gave humans that he did not give any other creature. And that's our ability to rationalize things and to be able to choose and make decisions. And if I can decide to forgive somebody, no matter what that thing is, and choose to make sure my thoughts are right, no matter, knowing that there are going to be times when I will need that same grace extended to me, then if I don't want to put a wedge between me and God, I can find a way to forgive you. Like, I can find a way to get over it and move on. Now, I'm not saying, and this is the caveat, I'm not saying that I'm going to partner with you moving forward. So I'm not making an excuse or giving people that do things bad things towards us, a past. It's not saying that I'm going to even deal with you or even maintain fellowship with you after this, but I can find a way to forgive you and let that thing go without expecting punishment or wishing ill upon you for what you did. I can find a way to let that thing go. Again, that's not saying I'm going to partner with you and we're going to be best friends and try to make things work. It's not always the case. Sometimes there are some bridges that you need to burn, especially if those bridges should have never been crossed in the first place. So there are times when you need to burn some bridges, because we will contend. A lot of times we introduce pain, these situations that we're talking about that require us to forgive somebody, because a lot of times we are trying to, and this is I see this in relationships a lot, is we're trying to get somebody to give us something that they don't have the capacity to give us, that they don't actually have within us. That's why it's a dangerous thing to date based on potential or to marry based on potential. Because what you're saying is that you could be setting someone up to try to give you something that they do not have. They don't have to give to you. So you have to be very careful with potential and contending with God for things if it's not seeming that this is really the will of God for your life. So you've got to be very careful with that, because a lot of times we have introduced pain into our life because we've contended with God for things that He really didn't design for us. And there's a difference between God's divine will and His permissive will. There are things that He will allow because these are things that we are contending with Him for. So we've got to be very careful with that to make sure. But even with that, you've got to learn how to forgive as well. And so, again, forgiveness is first for your benefit, not for the person that you are forgiving. It is first for your benefit. And again, as long as you're continuing to play the role of the victim and woe is me, you are going to be carrying around a very heavy burden. And when you choose not to forgive, you get stuck in the past, your past. When you choose not to forgive and you keep replaying the incident, you keep replaying what they did to you over and over and over and over and over again, you become stuck in the past. Many times the person that we're struggling to forgive has moved on. They've moved on into new relationships. They've moved on into new business endeavors. They've just moved on to different phases of life. Sometimes that person is literally dead, like physically dead, like they're dead, they're gone. And we are still struggling to forgive them and to get over what it was that they did. And when we do that, we remain stuck in the past. And so I don't even want to think about the years that I wasted with some situations that have happened in my life in regards to that particular thing, with staying stuck on what somebody did to me and feeling like I was hurting them by not forgiving them or holding on to that thing. I felt like I was hurting them when in reality, you holding on to something is not going to stop what God is going to do in their life. Have you ever been mad at somebody and then you see God bless them anyway, and it's like it really ticks you off because you're like, wait a minute, did you know what they did to me? Whatever. But you holding on to that is not going to stop what God is going to do in their life. But I tell you what, you holding on to that can stop what God is going to do in your life. So again, even if you have to come to the realization that, yes, I need to cut ties with you, but you've got to find a way to each and every day let that thing go. If it takes you every day having to release it and give it to God, that's what you've got to do for your own success. And so again, if you've been hurt by somebody and somebody has betrayed you, especially family members or spouses or people that are very close to you, it can be really hard, but you've got to choose to let that thing go. You've got to make the choice again on a daily basis, because if you're going to say, if it's a spouse or something like that, if you're going to stay in that relationship, if you're going to choose to stay, but you feel like you're going to remind them of what they did or bring it up all the time, that's not fair to that person. That's not fair. If you're going to stay in that relationship and you continue to do that, then what you're doing is opening up the door for the spirit of offense to take root, which can be very damaging and which can also put the relationship in a place to where it will eventually become unsalvageable, because you're saying, okay, I'm going to stay, but I'm going to keep on reminding you to try to get some sort of a revenge or repayment, or to make you feel bad. That's not fair to the other person. If you're choosing to stay, then you need to make up in your mind that you're going to do whatever it takes to get over it and to work to move forward and get to a better place, because it's just not fair for you to choose to stay and spend your time reminding them of their mistake. That's not fair to them. And so what forgiveness is, it's a very special process. And you literally have to let go of ill feelings towards that person, towards that situation. And so when we look at it in biblical terms, when we talk about that, and I don't want to get too far into that, but there's a lot that I could say about that as far as biblical terms, as far as literally releasing a debt that a person owes to you, and not expecting exact punishment for the offense. That's exactly what Christ did for us with our sins. If God gave us what we deserve, none of us would be here. Like, we would literally be wiped clean. Remember Noah and the ark? Like, when all the water, like everybody, like none of us would be. It would be like a whole nother situation like that. And so if God gave us exact punishment for what we really deserve, nobody would be here. And so that's what forgiveness is. It's releasing a debt. That that we're holding, or that somebody owes us, and just releasing that. And so it's not always easy to achieve that, and even because it's difficult, that does not mean you don't try. That does not mean you don't try, because a lot of times it's not really that God wants to necessarily change our situation. And I sent this out in the app the other day. He doesn't want to necessarily change our situation, but he wants to change us in spite of the situation. I'm going to say that again. He doesn't necessarily always want to change the situation, but he wants to change us in spite of the situation. Sometimes he puts us in the situations to be able to grow our character and to be able to expand our capacity to trust him and to love more. Because again, we can say we love people, but will we love people even when they hurt us, even when they do things that are not right, even when they make mistakes? Because I can love somebody very easily when they're doing all the right things and when everything's going great. But that's not the true sign of a disciple. So we have to make sure that when we say, okay, God, I want to be more like you. Well, do you really want to be more like him? Because you're going to have to go through some things where you're going to have some people that betray you. And it's not going to be just your average Joe Blow off the street. It wouldn't matter if it was just, some random dude off the street that, comes up and says something or does something. But it'll be family members. It'll be people that are very close to you that do things that hurt you. And that's how you begin to grow in love and grow in grace towards other people, when you're able to be put in situations that challenge you to grow that grace muscle. Okay. And so one other thing I want to talk about is, to reiterate, you cannot just forgive and think it's a one-time thing and that's it. You have to constantly remind yourself of the grace that you have been extended. You have to constantly remind yourself of that. Again, you have to remember that you are charged with extending that same grace to other people. And you have to change the way you speak. You have to change the way you think. And you have to change the way that you act towards people if you are really going to forgive the way that God intends for us to forgive. Again, and so every time your thoughts begin to wander into the negative, you got to learn how to master your thoughts. Just like I talked about that puppy earlier. Whenever you see your thoughts wandering over towards an area where they shouldn't be, you've got to redirect them immediately and put them back in their place, because you are the master of your thoughts. Your thoughts do not control you. You control your thoughts. Of course, there are going to always be thoughts that try to enter into our mind, but we have the power to entertain those thoughts or not entertain those thoughts. We have the power to cast those thoughts out. And so we've got to remember that. And so again, that's second. Yeah, here's a scripture that I have here written here about that. 2 Corinthians 10:5. It says, we destroy every proud obstacle that keeps people from knowing God. We capture their rebellious thoughts and teach them to obey Christ. So to wrap this video up, I want to leave you with a few reminders. And so the first one is that forgiveness allows you to take responsibility for your own happiness. Okay. And so when you harbor unforgiveness, then you're now essentially giving that thing power over you. Because it starts with your thoughts. And how is it that know that you're giving it power over you, because your behavior follows your thoughts. So if you're thinking a thing, and if you're dwelling on a thing, and if you're giving that thing energy, and if you're giving that thing steam, and you're dedicating time and focusing on those negative thoughts, then eventually your behavior is going to start reflecting that, whether that is things that you say to that person, things that you do towards that person, revenge that you try to seek towards that person. Your actions are going to start carrying it out. So you've got to realize that your thoughts have got to come under control. You've got to take responsibility for your own happiness and for your own joy and for your own peace by taking those thoughts captive and forgiving. Second thing is when we choose to learn from our pain. Remember when I was talking about sometimes we introduce pain into our life? When you choose to learn from that pain, they can now serve a purpose and no longer serve shame. I'm going to repeat that again because that's important. It says when you choose to learn from pain, it now serves a purpose and no longer serves shame. So again, when we're talking about these negative relationships, these things that require us to forgive, when you truly learn the lesson why a negative relationship keeps coming into your life, when you learn that lesson and you really learn it and you really grasp it, you will no longer be confronted with that same situation, because that's why a lot of times it seems like we're on cycles, and it seems like we keep getting a lot of the same things, or we keep meeting the same person, or keep meeting this same situation or the same obstacle. A lot of times we're doing that, or that's happening because we have not learned the lesson that we're supposed to learn, and it's going to keep reintroducing itself into our life until we get over that hurdle, until we learn that lesson. And so once we learn that, and it's no longer trying to attempt to teach us the same lesson, we can graduate from that and go into and we won't keep having that same unpleasant experience. The third thing is you have to have compassion for other people. You've got to love people wherever they are in life. And I want to slow down here a little bit. Because what happens is a lot of times when people are not where we are in life, then we tend to judge them and feel like because we're here in life and maybe they're still here in life, that, oh, they should know better, or they should, they need to do better than that. But a lot of times people really are doing the best they can with what they have to work with. I always say this, is that you should never judge somebody's choice when you do not know their options. I'm going to say that again. You never should judge someone's choice when you do not know the options that they had. Because what is available to you may not be available to that person. And what may look like a reckless decision to you may really just be a survival move for that other person. So a lot of times it's not that people set out to hurt you or set out to make a mistake or set out to do things that offend you. A lot of times people really don't know what to do in certain instances. Now, I'm not saying that's a blanket statement to cover everything everybody does to you that's wrong or mistakes that are made, but there really are some times when people really don't set out to hurt you or to offend you. And so we've got to really, really, really make sure that we are, again, looking and handling people with compassion, because, again, there will come a day when you will need that same grace extended to you. So you've got to be so careful that you do that. And so lastly, I just want to leave you with this reminder that the choice is yours. You have a choice to forgive. You have the power to forgive. Don't let the enemy tell you that you don't have it in you to forgive that person. Because sometimes he'll tell us, well, what they did was just too bad. It's just unforgivable. Well, there's nothing that is unforgivable. If that's the case, then, there are things that you're going to do that someone may feel like is unforgivable, when you know in your heart why those things occurred or what happened, and you're going to want, again, somebody to understand you, or to even take the time to try to understand where you're coming from. And so, we can't make it make it a point or make it our business to tell somebody, well, what you did is just unforgivable. No, at least it's going to be hard. I'm not sitting here negating that things don't hurt us, because they do. But you've got to get to a point to where you don't allow those things to hinder you from success in your own life. Hinder you from really walking in the purpose that you have for your life, because you're holding on to these. Because remember what I said earlier, if you're holding on to all this stuff in your hands, and if your hands are full, holding on to bitterness and unforgiveness and anger and all this stuff and resentment, then you don't have room for God's blessings to hold God's blessings, because you've got all this other stuff in your hands. So we've got to let that stuff go. We've got to release that stuff. So yes, that is my video for today. And I pray that something has been said that addresses a situation that you may be dealing with, and that you may be struggling with as far as it pertains to forgiveness. Again, if you are watching this video and you came across this video and you are actually not a member of the Finish Strong mentorship group, you can actually join via email by entering your name and email at rachellproctor.com. I had to think about it. rachellproctor.com/finish strong, and you can enter your name and email there, and you'll receive a confirmation and so forth, and you just go from there. You also have the opportunity to join our free Facebook group, which is an accountability group that we have. And so yes, that is my video for today. Also, if you do not have the Emerge online devotional app, you can download that app for free in the App Store or the Google Play Store. What is the Emerge online devotional app, you ask? Well, it is a free app that I developed. God gave me the idea a couple years ago actually now, but I began by sending out text messages. I used to send out text messages, if you guys remember that. I think it was emerge, send the word emerge to 41411, and I would send out daily inspirational messages via text every day. So really the app is just more so like those text messages on steroids, if you will. Within the app, there's all of my videos, replay access. You can actually join the accountability group there. You can submit prayer requests. You get daily notifications. So we're actually at the time of this recording, we're actually in the month of November, which this is the month of wisdom. And so you will get timeline graphics, devotionals, different things like that sent straight to your smartphone every day via our app. And so, yeah, that's exciting. I think it's exciting. I don't know, maybe you don't think it's exciting. But it's exciting to me. It's exciting to a lot of people. We've had over 1,200 people to download the app so far, and we haven't even had it up and going for 6 months yet. So we've had quite a few people to download it. So yeah, guys, that is it. But I appreciate you listening to this all the way through, and I hope you guys have a blessed and miraculous week. I'm praying for miracles for you, whatever it is that you stand in need of, whether that's for your business, whether that's for a relationship or a friendship, or just whatever situation that is hanging in the balance. I'm praying for you. Please say a prayer for me too. Thank you guys so much. And I do get your messages and things that you send to me, whether that's on social media or via email. However you send it to me, I get those, and I do appreciate your prayers and all your kind words. And so I won't hold you up any longer, but I hope you guys have a blessed day, and chat with y'all later. Peace out.